Wei Wuxian's tension eased, and he felt like causing some mischief again. Propping himself up on his arms, he leaned over to Lan Wangji and whispered softly, "Little old-fashioned, are you asleep?" After a moment of no response, a mischievous finger extended and poked at Lan Wangji's soft cheek. Really asleep?" That finger hesitated but couldn't resist gently brushing over those long lashes. Even when asleep, the little old-fashioned looks good. The finger slid over the high bridge of nose and landed on the warm, slightly parted lips. The lips were so soft too. Poke them and they bounce back. Seems kind of fun. Wei Wuxian seemed to have discovered something novel and couldn't stop for a moment. How strange, they feel a bit hot. Let blow on them. He puckered his lips and started blowing on that little gap. A pair of clear, glass-like light-colored eyes opened. Froze. Wei Wuxian, with his lips puckered, blinked, seemingly sensing something was off. Lan Wangji's eyes widened. Wei Wuxian performed a quick flip and tumbled to the depths of the bed, pulling the blanket over his head, pretending to be deeply asleep. Suddenly, a cool sensation appeared above his head as the blanket was lifted. Rubbing his eyes, he mumbled, "Ah, little old-fashioned, you're still not asleep. I fell asleep a long time ago." As he met Lan Wangji's gaze, his voice trailed off like a deflating balloon, becoming softer and softer. Wei Wuxian's body, like a small animal sinking into quicksand, shrank inch by inch. Just as he was about to disappear, something slipped under his arm from within the blanket and grabbed tightly at his waist, yanking him back up forcefully. They ended up in delicate positions, with Lan Wangji holding Wei Wuxian's waist from behind. Wei Wuxian turned his head, looking anxiously into those calm, water-like eyes. What are you trying to do?" Wei Wuxian squirmed uncomfortably, but the arm around his waist just tightened. "I want to sleep. He struggled to pry the arm away. "Let go!" He extended his hand to wrestle with the inopportune arm. "Ah!" His back collided with a firm and warm embrace, and his hips sharply pushed against the thighs behind him. In the stillness of the night, the crisp sound of a slap was followed, making ears burn with embarrassment. Wei Wuxian's bottom outlined a rough shape without any difficulty, and a flush of red burned from the base of his ears to his cheeks, then down to his neck. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he took a sharp breath and began kicking and flailing wildly. The hand that was previously around his waist moved swiftly to capture his wrists, pressing them firmly against his chest with formidable strength. Simultaneously, an unyielding weight pressed down on his hips and thighs, firmly locking him in place. "What?" Wei Wuxian gasped for breath. He cried with grievance, "Help!" As if to express extreme displeasure, a scorching breath weighed heavily on the back of Wei Wuxian's neck. Immediately after, something incredibly hard scraped harshly across his exposed skin. Wei Wuxian's entire body stiffened. Lan Wangji had actually bitten him on the neck. This sensation terrified him the most, as it made him think of a certain sharp-toothed animal that could run swiftly and easily pounce on him, gnawing wildly. On the verge of tears, Wei Wuxian stifled a sob, cursing and struggling frantically. "Don't run!" Lan Wangji's deep magnetic voice carried a tone of almost gentle yet undeniable command, mixed with the clear scent of sandalwood and alcohol, filled with a dangerous threat as it landed in Wei Wuxian's ear. "Run again and I'll bite." Wei Wuxian whimpered, not daring to move. Satisfied, Lan Wangji exhaled a hot breath and pulled Wei Wuxian's body closer to his own, burying his face in the back of his neck and kissing his soft hair. Wei Wuxian dared not make a sound and just considered himself a compliant and pliable pillow, to be squeezed and kneaded at will. Lan Wangji's chest pressed heavily against him, contentedly pulling him into his embrace. Moments later, calm and steady breathing came from behind, rising and falling as if immersed in an unusually peaceful dream. Wei Wuxian was still in shock, his heart pounding. "Oh my God! This little old-fashioned is terrifying when he's drunk. hugging and biting. He's nothing like that usually reserved person who would get upset at a single touch. Help! Someone save this poor me. I've been kidnapped by Lan Wangji. Calling to the heavens was useless. Calling to the earth. No response. 2. Wei Wuxian secretly vowed never to let Lan Wangji touch alcohol again. The wedding night passed in such a terrifying and bizarre manner. From childhood to adulthood, Wei Wuxian had never been held while sleeping, let alone by Lan Wangji. To be honest, he wasn't that familiar with Lan Wangji. At most, they were playmates who had known each other for a month. A playmate that he quite liked. Yes, he enjoyed teasing Lan Wangji from time to time, but that was just youthful, carefree fun between boys, completely unrelated to matters of love and affection. The usually elegant and composed Lan Wangji had none of his typical restraint when drunk. He was unreasonable and rough in his actions. Whenever Wei Wuxian tried to twist and break free, Lan Wangji would bite down hard on his neck, leaving deep teeth marks and causing sharp pain. This scared Wei Wuxian like a fawn caught by a tiger, shivering and trembling. To save his life, he was forced to submit to Lan Wangji's overwhelming dominance. He was completely restrained, with only a thin layer of fabric separating their bodies. With even the slightest movement, he could feel the faint hardness of that part, and just this made his face burn with embarrassment. He couldn't call out or run away, and for the first time in his life he felt an overwhelming sense of humiliation. Being a man himself, he was all too familiar with this ready-to-go state, so he quickly stayed still to avoid any accidents. He cautiously and subtly tried to put some distance between them. The entire night was spent in fearful vigilance, engaged in this frustrating and awkward struggle all by himself, never closing his eyes for a proper rest. The once cool and tranquil scent of sandalwood on Lan Wangji now seemed intense and aggressive, enveloping Wei Wuxian completely, leaving no room to breathe anything but that scent. It felt as if it was seeping into his blood, assimilating him, merging into his body. This was probably revenge for his audacious attempt to flee the wedding, Wei Wuxian thought. Had he known, he would have made a desperate attempt to escape the moment his rope was cut. No matter how good-looking the little old-fashioned was, he reminded himself, he didn't like men. No matter what, he was a proud and powerful man. How could he willingly submit and become a little spouse? Moreover, being taken advantage of in bed whenever the other wanted was endlessly humiliating to even think about. The next day, Wei Wuxian woke up with dark circles under his eyes and a belly full of resentment. When he woke up, Lan Wangji was just returning from outside, dressed in just a pair of underpants, soaked from head to toe, with cold water droplets hanging from his slightly messy long hair. Did this person go to the well to bathe early in the morning, and just drenched himself in the cold well water like that? This obsession with cleanliness was quite extraordinary. Lan Wangji seemed somewhat lost in thought, not noticing him. He grabbed a towel from the screen and absent-mindedly began to dry himself. Wei Wuxian carefully stole a glance at him, then gently lifted the blanket and got out of bed. He tiptoed, trying to sneak past Lan Wangji from behind. Awake? Wei Wuxian straightened up abruptly, scratching his head and laughing awkwardly. Yeah, you wake up quite early too. Lan Wangji turned to look at him, his eyes flickering slightly before returning to their usual calm state. Moments later, Lan Wangji was dressed in the elegant cloud-patterned robes of the Lan clan, with a modest belt cinched around his slender waist, looking impeccable and flawless. He was still the same Han Guangjun that made hearts race with his good looks. Not at all like someone who had spent the entire night drunkenly causing trouble and teasing a respectable boy in his embrace. That's right. In Wei Wuxian's mind now, this little old-fashioned was someone who appeared innocent and pure on the surface but harbored a monstrous being within, who bullied the weak when drunk, a thoroughly wicked person.